Magnus Carlsen, arguably the best chess player ever alive, has won 879 games in his career. But not all victories are the same. Today I will show you his Immortal game. So let's begin. This game was played in the year of 2004 and Magnus Carlsen was 13 years old and he was IM already. He was playing in a closed round-robin tournament in Wijk and he had the white pieces against Sipke Ernst. So he played the move pawn to e4, his opponent responded with the move pawn to c6 in the Caro-Kann defense, and Magnus correctly took over the center, of course. And now d5 was played, and nowadays the best move to play is pawn to e5, gaining a lot of space, but in this game Magnus chose to play knight to c3, simply defending the pawn logically. And now d takes on e4 was played, knight takes e4 is of course the only move, and now bishop to f5 is the best move, classical variation, attacking the knight. Now Magnus played knight g3, this is still theory, attacking the bishop, bishop g6 has to be played, and now Magnus played this aggressive move, pawn to h4, trying to play pawn h5 and trap this bishop. And Ernest now responded with the move h6, of course giving this bishop an escape square, and now knight f3, trying to play knight e5 was played, knight d7 preventing this idea, and now simply h5, bishop h7, and bishop to d3. And of course you can see that this bishop has moved once, twice, and the third time, and now it will take the d3 bishop, so Magnus gained some tempi here. Of course he recaptured with the queen, and now pawn to e6 was still the best move, still theory, bishop f4 developing, trying to castle. Of course Magnus can't castle to the short side because there is a pawn on h5 and this king would be kinda weak on g1. So he chose to play bishop f4, now knight g f6 was played, trying to develop. This bishop will usually develop to b4, maybe queen a5 check, but Magnus chose to castle here, still very known position nowadays. Bishop e7 developing, trying to castle is the best move, and now knight e4 was the first move out of the opening. Now knight e4 is a very logical idea. White is trying to trade off these two knights and then push g4, g5 and open up the king side where this king will ultimately be. So after knight e4, probably trading and then playing knight f6, attacking the queen is the best, but after the move knight to e4, Ernest simply chose to play queen a5, of course attacking the a2 pawn, and now Magnus very quickly responded to the move king to b1, of course very logical move, sidestepping from the c file, maybe it will open up via the move c5, and of course preventing the threat of queen takes pawn. And now Ernest castled short side, maybe castling Klonk was there as well, but this bishop is very strong on this open diagonal, so castling Klonk in this position after king b1 is very risky, so castling short side is the best. And now knight takes f6 was played with an idea to push g4 if bishop takes, so Ernest took with the knight, and now this position is very nice for both sides. Why? Ernest will put either of the rook to d8, maybe to e8, and will try to play c5, opening the center, and of course attacking white center. And on the other hand, white's idea is to play knight e5, g4 and g5, opening and attacking the king side. And of course, the name of this video is Magnus Carlsen Immortal chess game, so Magnus will ultimately open up the king side. And now knight to e5 was played, trying to play g4, of course defending the pawn, and now rook a d8 was played. As I said, this is a very normal plan. Now c5 is probably the best move. If black were to move, of course the pawn would be pinned. So Magnus kinda needs to make a queen move. And here the engine move is to play queen g3, threatening bishop takes h6. Of course Magnus saw this move, but probably he thought that after king h7 he is kinda okay, but he thought that queen to e2 was the better option. Why is that so? Probably he was looking at g4, of course defended by the queen and by the knight from e5, so he thought this is a very logical move, trying to play g5 next, of course after g4, and maybe trying to play queen e4, of course not when the knight is here, but maybe queen f3, I don't know, maybe just supporting the knight. He thought maybe this is better when c5 will be played. And of course, as you can see, white is not actually attacking black. By the engine, this is almost equal position, but of course g4, g5 is an idea always. And of course this knight on e5 is very strong piece, but it cannot really do any damage. It cannot go to g6 because of the f7 pawn, and it cannot take the f7 pawn because the king and the rook defends this square. This pawn actually. So what is the knight doing here? It cannot go to g6 as I mentioned. Now Ernest simply played the move pawn to c5, simply trying to open up the center, trying to open up this rook, and of course its knight cannot go anywhere. So it cannot go to g6 nor to f7. So Magnus simply played knight g6, sacrificing the knight. This is the first sacrifice of this game. You might look, what is this? Of course Ernest can simply take the knight, and as you can see by the engine it's only plus 0.7, but after Ernest took the knight, you can see it's 2.5 advantage for Magnus in this position. And of course with the move f takes g6, now the e6 pawn is simply undefended, and Magnus took the pawn with check. This is really important. And after king h8, you can see now the bishop here is hanging, but you cannot really take the bishop. Why not? Because after rook to e8, I believe no, rook e8 is not the best move in this position. What? Maybe engine can help me. Oh, of course, there is knight to d5, forking the queen and the bishop, and in this position engine agrees that black is okay. It's not much, but it is at least okay. So Magnus correctly, after f takes g6, he simply took the pawn, and after king h8, he didn't fall for this free piece on e7, but he rather played the move h takes g6. This is very good move. Of course, maybe trying to open up the h file, but this is nearly impossible. g4, g5 will happen very soon, and this queen will get kicked out. At least Ernest thought it will. And he played knight to g8, simply protecting everything in black's position. And as you can see, the engine is wild in this position. He is screaming that white is winning. But how, you might ask? Everything in the position is defended, and of course Ernest has a piece advantage in this position. So what did Magnus do to win this immortal game of his? He sacrificed the bishop. Bishop takes h6. And of course, if the knight takes, this is simply very bad, because after knight takes, you can take with the rook, and then take the bishop, and spaghetti time, as Hikaru would say. This is simply checkmate on h7. You cannot defend against this checkmate threat. So after bishop takes h6, of course Ernest needs to take the bishop, because bishop anywhere is simply checkmate in few moves. So g takes on h6 was played indeed, and now Magnus sacrificed his rook. Rook takes h6, check. And of course, if king g7, this is simply checkmate. Rook h7 would be checkmate in one. So Ernest took his rook, and now Magnus played queen takes e7, threatening checkmate once again. Queen h7 would be checkmate in one. So Ernest cannot really stop this threat of Magnus, so he needs to play knight to f7. But Ernest is still up a piece at this position, up a full rook if I'm exact. Ernest has two rooks and Magnus only has one rook. Of course, there is an open h-file and attack on this poor king, but after king to g7, where is the attack? Where is the finish of this game? Magnus finds it with a very, very good maneuver. Rook d3, simply trying to rook lift this rook from d1 to this very, very good square. Rook g3 would simply be game over. So, of course, there is no queen e1, there is no checkmate threat because of this very good queen on e7. And now Ernest found the only move. Rook d6 is the only move that kinda keeps fighting on, because after a rook g3 check, which is the best move once again by Magnus Carlsen, attacking this king. Of course, after rook d6, the rook cannot be captured because queen e1 would simply be checkmate, and Magnus would lose this game. So after rook g3, rook g6 was the idea. But now, the only winning move in the position, everything else loses, is queen e5 check. And Magnus saw this position from the move bishop takes h6. He calculated everything, that he will sacrifice the rook, he will take the bishop, he will take then the knight when it gets to f7. He calculated rook d3, there is no checkmate on e1. He calculated that rook d6 can be played. And then he saw queen e5 is the winning idea in this position. Of course, now the pawn is free, and it's still unclear how Magnus can win this position. But after king takes f7, he found the only winning move once again, queen f5 check. And of course, the rook will fall, and this king will be, of course, mated in few moves. But there is the move rook to f6. But of course, Magnus delivers his checkmate. This is a very beautiful checkmate. The king is, of course, stuck between these rooks on f6 and on f8. This queen guards all the squares, and the rook helps deliver the checkmate. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was Magnus Carlsen Immortal game. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing. It would really help me out. And see you guys in another video. Bye!